Hi everyone, welcome to this ITQ Lightboard session. I'm Kushtrim, I'm part of Cloud Native team in German team, and with me here is Carlos, part of Cloud Native team in Netherlands team. We are going to talk today about lifecycle management of TKGI using Argo Workflows.
Okay, so first let me just say TKGI, Tanzu Kubernetes Grid Integrated Edition. That's Kubernetes distribution from VMware, previously from Pivotal, and it's based on Bosch is the kind of the orchestrating layer underneath. So I'm not going to go too much into detail into how TKGI works, but I want to make a couple example Argo workflows to be able to show. So I'm going to explain a little bit. So what do you have? You know, if you want to get TKGI running, you're going to need first, something like vSphere. After vSphere, you have something called Tanzu Ops Manager. This, for the people coming more from the VMware world, it's just an appliance, so a virtual machine. Ops Manager. And then lastly, another kind of a component that you're going to need to talk to, it's the TKGI API. Okay, but yes, we're going to do this with Argo Workflows. So of course, we're going to need to have Argo Workflows running, and Argo Workflows gets deployed into a Kubernetes cluster. Argo, yeah. Okay, so of course, you're going to need connections with all these three components to the API, of course, and okay. You will deploy this Ops Manager to vSphere. So the first step, it's talking to vSphere to deploy the appliance. Once Ops Manager is running, you target its API to deploy TKGI. How do you deploy TKGI? Well, the way that Ops Manager works, it's by a concept of tiles, which includes your configuration for all your different components, right? Because of course we're talking about TKGI. It's right here, tiles. But that's not only it. Actually, there's a couple more components to make your platform a bit more complete that you could deploy. You know, so that could, for example, be Harbor, so your container registry where you're going to store and pull your images. It could be, for example, as well, RabbitMQ. Postgres, I think there's a couple different that you can get deployed there.
One question, you deploy Harbor, RabbitMQ, and Postgres as a VMs or inside the Kubernetes cluster?
Yeah, so in this case, it's outside of the Kubernetes cluster. And that's, Bosch is the one, like I said, is the one that's doing the orchestration and kind of creating these VMs. It can be a combination of VMs. It also doesn't mean that necessarily each tile is one VM, right? Let's see. So, of course, we're talking about the tiles, but I mean, the end goal in here is actually to lifecycle management Kubernetes clusters. So, let's see. I'm going to add, let's say, 4 Kubernetes clusters. Okay. So, like we said, ultimately, the main goal is upgrading this. But for that, you're also going to have to upgrade, for example, Ops Manager, which I won't go into detail, but as well like the TKGI tile, that configuration. It needs to be prepared for the next version. So I'm going to go a little bit more into the Argo Workflows side of it, or how am I automating this lifecycle management. Let's say that first step, for upgrading this tile, again, we're doing new version, so we're gonna need to get that new version from somewhere. That you download from Pivotal Network. That's just a page from VMware where they have all these products. And then after downloading it, you need to upload it to Tanzu Ops Manager. So let's say we have a couple steps here. This is download. Then, of course, you have the upload. And well, ultimately you have also a step called staging, in which you are you're not doing the upgrade, you are kind of applying your configuration so that you can really see what you need to edit, right? From one version to another, there might be extra configuration, so that gets added, and you can then, either by hand go and check, or of course you can have a couple more steps.
Yep.
Like for example, that configuring that we just said, and ultimately doing your tile upgrade.
At the part of downloading, so you are basically downloading image from Pivotal VMware network. You have to save that image somewhere. Do you save it persistent, or you just keep it transitionally until you move to the upload stage?
No, so transitionally, in that sense, I guess it would be a bad idea. We don't really know, what's going to happen. You don't want to be remembering things, right? We're talking Kubernetes. We're talking stateless, right? So there's a few components that you use in combination of Argo Workflows for this kind of little details, right? The specific one that you mentioned, we will have an S3 bucket, so it's just like a simple storage service. And at the end of the download stage, you specify an output, and that's you have to put the address, like where in the container you have that file, and where do you want it to store it in S3.
Also, you're mentioning that you're going to have configuration, and also to download you need to have some credentials. Do you keep them, do you pass them as a file or as a Kubernetes secrets, or do you store somewhere?
So yeah, actually that one that you just mentioned, usually you can have it, as a secret in Kubernetes, or of course, if you have something like Vault running, you can use that, of course. Again, of course, you needed, in the first place, you needed your container registry to get these pods running, right? So, like we said, after it gets downloaded, it gets stored into the S3, and we said that we had an output step here. The next one, we have an input step. And that's, it's the upload stage, but we're downloading it into the container to after upload it into Tanzu Ops Manager. After that, we can, continue with the rest of the workflow. Okay, let's say that now we've executed this, and we have a new version of our TKGI tile. That still didn't touch these clusters, so we're gonna need to upgrade the clusters based on the new tile configuration. So how does that happen? Okay. On the first step, we would have to get a list of upgradable clusters, right? So in this case, it's quite simple. We're just comparing the Tanzu TKGI version in the existing clusters. We're comparing that with the TKGI version. If this version it's older than the last one, then that will it will be part of the list, that cluster. This outputs an array with a list of clusters. So cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3. 4 in this case. Okay, after we have our list, then we're going to want to trigger the upgrade, right? So okay, it's upgrade. But what happens in here? Okay, we're talking this here in the Lightboard, putting 4 clusters, but talking about situations in which you might have to deal with like 200 clusters at the same time. You might not want to do that one by one because it might take a long time, lots of resources. But you might also not want to do all of them at the same time because again, both TKGI API, Bosch, you're interacting with them. You might send too many requests. You might end up breaking your environment. So of course you want to limit a little bit how many upgrades you want to do at a time. Argo Workflows has something for that called synchronization. So for example, I would say for this workflow template, it can only be executed, let's say 3 at a time, right? So you would have, those within your 200 clusters, you would have 3 upgrades running at the same time. The moment this one's done, another task will appear, and it will just make sure that there's only 3 instances of this workflow template running at once.
What would happen if one of them fails?
Okay, so for that, there's a couple things. In this specific case, I have seen in upgrades that sometimes the upgrade does get carried on correctly, but there's just something that fails, small fail along the way. Even though your Kubernetes nodes might be already on a newer version, the step fails for some reason, right? So for that, you can do a retry strategy. So that means, let's say that this upgrade here fails. You could just do a retry, and this will automatically, on failure of this step, it will just trigger it again. We've seen that this, in many cases, that second trigger just kind of completes the task successfully. Now, what happens if this fails? We cannot be just retrying the same operation for the sake of it, right? Then that's where Argo Workflows has something called the on failure, I guess, strategy as opposed to the retry. So that would mean that we're getting, if this fails again, then we can create another task, which in this case I think it would be interesting to do some kind of notification. So that would be either sending the team an email saying, oh, this cluster upgrade failed, or if you're doing things through a ticketing system, you can also automatically create a ticket that will be assigned for your team so that you know what clusters you need to go and fix or try to upgrade correctly.
Okay.
Well, I think this is very much it for me. So,
thank you, Carlos.
Yes.
And thank you, everyone, for watching this video. If you have any question regarding TKGI, TKGI Lifecycle Management, or Argo Workflows, please contact us or Carlos, and we're gladly to answer your questions and help you.
Yes. Thank you very much.